Federal judge has ordered a Montana newlywed charged with murder released from jail on her own recognizance, despite the fact that she's admitted to killing her husband of 8 days by pushing him off a cliff and then trying to cover up the crime. Jordan Graham is now walking the streets, and friends and family of the man she killed, Cody Lee Johnson, can't believe it. Joining me on the phone now is Max Rocha, a co-worker of now deceased Cody Lee Johnson. All right, Max, you there?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Thanks for being with us. You knew Cody. You worked with him for 3 years. He was a newlywed. Some say that he was warned against going through the marriage. What did you think about his wife?
I did not have an extremely large amount of interaction with Jordan due to the fact that she was just basically never around. When we would get together outside of work, it was very few and far between that I had ever actually seen Jordan. And when she was there, it was pretty much the attitude that she had somewhere else to be.
That she had in other words, that she didn't want to be there.
Yeah, it never seemed like she really interacted with us on a real personal level. It was always, like I said, like she had somewhere else to be.
And was that with respect to you or with respect to her fiancé, soon-to-be husband?
I think it was really difficult for me because when people are like that, sometimes you want to say in your head, okay, these people have a relationship behind closed doors. Maybe the person that's not very... they're not an extrovert, they kind of keep themselves in the relationship private. But it just struck me as odd that, Cody was always putting forth the effort to make sure his, bride-to-be was always getting what she needed, that he was always at work, that he was always communicating with her. It just seemed like very one-sided, in my opinion.
And when he spoke about her, did he say anything unusual or anything that you look back on and think, oh, that should have been a trigger?
When he said anything about her, it was always in a positive light. He always wanted to make sure that she was taken care of. That was priority number one for him, in his life. I know that there were several times where it was like we were going out somewhere to go, hang out after work or what have you. And it was like, hey, why don't you bring Jordan? Just a very, normal, casual conversation. And it was either met with an immediate, no, that's not possible, or he would attempt to bring her out, and it was always met with refusal.
Interesting. All right, Max, thanks so much for being with us this evening. With me now are Steve Greenberg, who is part of the Drew Peterson's defense team, and former prosecutor Richard Portale, now a defense attorney. Now, is this a he said, she said situation, Richard, or do you think the prosecution has a case here?
They have a rock-solid case.
Why do you say that?
This confession is rock-solid. It's very likely to be true. We know that she lied several times. She made up 2 days after, she lied to prosecutors, or at least to the law enforcement, about a text message that she said that she received from Mr. Johnson. And we know she lied about it because just after that, she sent another text message to her friend about an hour and a half later saying, I'm going to see him.
And the first text message was allegedly from him saying, look, I'm going away with a friend, and she doesn't have it. Though.
Right. And then she says she comes home and she sees him getting into the car. And the reason she does that is to cover up for the murder.
And then she finds his body.
And then she finds his body. And there's a Freudian slip there, too, because she says to the park ranger, well, this is what he said. This is where he said he wanted to go before he died.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. Yeah. All right, Steve Greenberg, defense attorney. What are you going to make of this? This woman is denying that, she had anything to do with it, and then finds his body. How many days later was it?
5
days later, she stumbles on his body, which is over a cliff, the place he wanted to go to before he died. Steve?
Well, here you've got a she said, and he ain't saying anything. So all you've got is her description of the actual event that occurred. You can explain away the post-event conduct that she freaked out, she was nervous, she was scared. And look what happened when ultimately she told the prosecution what really occurred out on that cliff. She got charged with his murder.
And what do you think she told police that you as a defense attorney would use?
I think what she told them eventually was that he grabbed her, and when he grabbed her and yanked at her, she turned to push him away. that they were having a discussion. She was very open about the fact that she wasn't happy about being married. So that's not contested. She went out and talked to him about it, and he may have overreacted. He may have grabbed at her as she walked away. She turns around and pushes him. The post-death conduct can easily be explained by saying she was afraid.
Okay, so Richard, the woman's married for 8 days.
Yeah.
And now she's afraid, and she pretty much sets it up and lies about the fact that, you know, he's with a friend when now we know that she was with him and that she pushed him over the cliff. I mean, how does that work with a jury?
I don't think it works at all. His wallet, his cell phone, his car keys are left at the house. Is it likely that he's going to leave with some strangers or some friends at 10 o'clock at night and leave his cell phone and leave his wallet and leave his keys? And she claims he sent this text. Well, so she would have us believe that he sent the text, he deleted the text, and he jumped in the car and went.
All right, no,
but that's not the story. That's not the story she's going with. She now says she was out there with him. So who cares about all that? What happened at the scene? Did she just push him over the cliff to get rid of him? After telling people she wanted to get rid of him?
Well, she also
that doesn't make any
contradicts
sense
herself.
either.
She also contradicts herself to the police because she claims that he reached out to grab her arm, he moves her hand away from her arm, and then she shoves him in the back, which isn't even possible because they'd be facing each other.
Guys, listen to this. I've got the affidavit in support of the complaint, and it says that she was having second thoughts about having been married, and she needed to talk to someone about her issue. And they also talk about the fact that, you know, she says that if a text message, if I don't show up, look for me.
Something happened. Sounds like she took things into her own hands to me. I mean, that's...
But then why does she go out there, Judge, why does she go out there days later and find the body? She knew where it was.
The jig was up.
But why do that? Why not just leave it out there and hope no one finds it?
She knew they were going to find it.
You know what? I'll tell you why, Steve, because some people aren't as smart as you are.
Yeah.
Guys, stick around. Coming up, he goes on YouTube to say he's ready to be punished for killing a man. But then he pleads not guilty. Really? And this is your last chance to vote in tonight's Insta poll. Syria chemical weapons showdown. Was President Obama played by President Putin? Send me your answer on Facebook or Twitter at Judge Jeanine. Matthew Cordell posted a video confession on YouTube claiming he wanted to take responsibility for his actions and discourage drunk driving after he drove drunk on the wrong side of the street and killed a 61-year-old person. But this week, Cordell and his lawyers entered a plea of not guilty. Some say it was a ploy to get a more lenient judge assigned to the case, and others think Cordell wants to prolong his 15 minutes of fame. Still with me, Steve Greenberg and Rich Portali. Steve, I'll go to you first. The guy gets on YouTube and he says, I did it, I was wrong, I was drunk, this is terrible, I'm going to go and admit my guilt. He goes to court and he pleads not guilty. What kind of message is that?
Well, there's no message in the not guilty, Judge. As you know, people go, there's a procedure, there's an orderly system. Maybe they do want to get a better judge. Just because he's coming forward and saying he's going to plead guilty doesn't mean he wants him to throw the book at him or he wants a judge who's a hammering judge. I think
so what
that the
should
whole
he
thing
do,
with the
judge
video,
chop and just keep moving until he gets the right judge, Richard?
Well, you can only...
Richard, go ahead.
I think we should focus on what's important here, and that is that there was 1 million+ views of this video, and he begged people not to drink and drive. And if he saved just one life by doing that,
so you
I think he
should
deserves
get a benefit?
Absolutely. I applaud him for doing it. He could save lives. He's not going to treatment, which helps him. That's self-centered treatment. He's trying to save lives, and he's contrite about it, and he's serious about it.
But, Steve, the judge who arraigned him hadn't really indicated what the sentence would be, somewhere between 2.5 and 8, I understand. So what's he balking about?
I don't know that he's balking about anything at this point. Maybe they just didn't have everything together and they wanted to get it together. I agree with Richard that what he did is a good thing. If he'd have done it silently and quietly and just gone into the prosecutor's office, no one would talk about it. No one would know about it. And this does bring attention to the issue, which is a serious issue. There's not a defense attorney around who likes drunk driving.
Well, but what about the fact that, you know, at this point, instead of saying, Your Honor, we're going to schedule it for a plea, as he suggested on the YouTube video that you say got 1 million viewers, you know, what about the feeling that maybe just played the system there? I mean, nothing was scheduled for a plea. It's now apparently going to go to a different judge. Is he judge shopping?
Well, 2.5 to 8. Let's assume that that's what the judge... I mean, that's not really much of a promise, is it? It's really not much.
If I'm at 2.5 instead of 8, it's a big promise.
What if that video saves just one life?
Yeah.
2.5 to 8? I mean, I think it's worth the minimum sentence if that's the case, because
Okay,
he's
because
really,
of what he
truly
did.
trying to right his wrong.
Okay, what do you think, Steve?
I think I agree that he should get towards the minimum because he tried to right his wrong. If he'd have said nothing and they came to hunt him down, that'd be a different story.
right.
But they're always saying, if you did something, take responsibility for it. Here we have someone taking responsibility in a very public way, sending a message to people,
Both of you
and I
guys,
think he should get credit
both
for
of
it.
you guys are taking his side when there really was outrage
What do
even
you
by
think?
the judge. You know what? As far as I'm concerned, an arraignment is an arraignment. Thank you for asking. It isn't necessarily to plead guilty, but I understand how the public, being non-lawyers, would say, "Hey, wait a minute, this guy played the system." But here, I think, is the more interesting issue to me. Do we now have social media being used as a way to confess to a crime in the hopes of getting a better offer from the prosecution or the court? Richard?
My position doesn't change. If people can use social media to affect a positive change and to potentially right the wrong they've committed, if they're serious about it, but you got to be serious about it. Now, if you're trying to play the system, it's a different story. But if you can use it for positive change and to try to fix something that you've done because you made a mistake and you admit it, I don't have a problem with it. And I think it's a good thing.
And Richard, I mean, are we in a scenario where maybe if you do a YouTube video to get attention, then they might say, you know, I was really drunk when I did that. I was only kidding. Does this stuff automatically come in? I mean, you don't have to get Miranda rights. You don't have to be advised. Your right to remain silent. I wonder if half of these people even know what they're getting themselves into on YouTube and some of the social media.
Well, you're right. Oh, sorry.
Look how many cases, Judge, there have been, though, where people post things on Facebook and they come back to haunt them. They get in a fight, they post it on Facebook, or we get cases all the time of guys standing there with guns and gang signs.
Yep.
It's terrible. I don't like any social media.
Well, you're a good defense attorney. Richard Portali as well. Thank you, gentlemen.